Hello and welcome to another Quaidian episode of Saved by the 90s. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today is a guy who's the former president of the Dennis Quaid fan club, Mr. Ken Bakley. Hey, Ken.
Hello. I guess I'm former because I never knew I was.
And
was there an election?
I'm the former president of the Randy Quaid fan club.
I guess those are different. Those imply different things.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, well, I'm proud of my title because we're going to talk about him about Dennis Quaid a bunch today. So
that's right.
I'm qualified.
We're going to be taking a look at 4 Dennis Quaid films that were released throughout the decade. So strap in. Let's get started. We're going to be kicking things off with Postcards from the Edge. This came out in 1990. Directed by Mike Nichols. I have a synopsis here. A substance-addicted actress tries to look on the bright side even as she is forced to move back in with her mother to avoid unemployment. This stars, alongside Dennis Quaid, you have Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine. So Ken, and Gene Hackman's in here too, along with like a bunch of smaller roles from Richard Dreyfuss, Rob Reiner. Annette Bening plays she pops in there early.
That's like a really early Annette Bening.
Yeah, early role for her. That was a surprise. So, Ken, what were your initial impressions of Postcards from the Edge?
Well, I know that this month's episode is about Dennis Quaid specifically, whose birthday it actually was earlier in the past weekend when we were recording. However, I'm going to talk about him very little because he really doesn't factor into this movie very much at all.
He's not. He's a very small part of this movie, even though he's like kind of one of the top
third
build. He's third build.
He's above the title.
He's really not. He does not really play a big role in this in the slightest. It almost feels like it's like. I'm kind of watching the trailer here that's just like playing muted on the IMDb page, and it almost looks like it's kind of marketed as a rom-com between Meryl Streep and Dennis Quaid. And that's not really how it is. Like, it's not. I mean, there is sort of a love story there, but it's so slight. Like, I mean, it plays such a small part of this story, which is mostly about Meryl Streep and her relationship with her mother and the substance abuse issues that both of them have. And, you know, them working in the industry and how that affects them and everything. So the whole Dennis Quaid love story is just, it's so minor.
Yeah, he's just kind of this vague, unsavory, but I mean, interesting guy who just kind of comes into the movie and comes out of the movie, and about 20 minutes after he's gone, the movie's completely forgotten about him because he's really not it's a wholly as you said, extraneous to the core of the story here, which is a mother-daughter story, and features 2 excellent performances from Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine.
And this is written by Carrie Fisher. Mm-hmm. I have to imagine that this has to be inspired by her life, right?
Yeah,
it has to be. I haven't like read much about this, but I can't imagine that this would not be inspired by her life.
Yeah, to definitely to some extent. I mean, it was based on a novel that she wrote that one would assume, is really coming from her life and her relationship with her mother, Debbie Reynolds. I think there is some story that Debbie Reynolds was considered to play the Shirley MacLaine part here, but Mike Nichols didn't actually think that she would work in that role, which is interesting.
Well, yeah, that is kind of interesting. But I think that she does a great job. I think Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine both do a really wonderful job here, as you might expect. I mean, of course, they're gonna do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw this movie before. I didn't really know anything about it. And I enjoyed it for the most part. I thought it was well acted, well written. I thought the dialogue was quite good. I think this is the highlight of this batch of movies for me.
Yeah, I would say so too. Yeah,
It's quite
it's definitely the best movie out of all of them. I mean, if we're talking about movies that I just feel like I need 45 minutes just to talk about this movie alone, maybe it doesn't win that title.
no, yeah.
But this is definitely the best made movie of the four.
Yeah. This was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, including Meryl Streep for Best Actress and Best Original Song by Shel Silverstein.
Yeah, she sings a couple of songs in this.
And Shel Silverstein, isn't he a writer?
Yeah, he wrote the yeah, he's best known for, the Giving Tree and stuff, but he did write a bunch of songs too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote like a handful of stuff, I think mostly in the 60s and 70s.
There are a couple musical numbers in this. Wasn't a big fan of them, to be honest with you.
I'm a big fan of the musical numbers in this movie.
I just didn't. I don't know. Like, they were okay. The first Shirley MacLaine one was okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's Shirley MacLaine singing the song "I'm Still Here" from the musical Follies. I feel like that's maybe one of the more famous scenes in this.
Yeah, that was okay, but I don't know. I thought they dedicated maybe a little bit too much time to the singing.
I thought it was great because the movie literally, it's one of those great movies that ends with a musical number. Any credits roll over over Meryl Streep singing.
I liked that, to be clear. I mean, I definitely liked the way that it ended. I just thought that this was just a kind of a nice, inoffensive movie. I didn't feel like it dove too deeply into the topics that it was trying to tackle. But
I'd be interested to see. I wonder if it's just kind of because I haven't read the book, but I'm wondering if it might just the way that these things go and maybe the kinds of stories of this, such an internalized story that's so about, focused on these two people. I'm wondering if it's just maybe was difficult to adapt to the screen in a certain way. I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe just a lot more to the book that maybe just couldn't.
Yeah, I imagine there is.
But if it wasn't in this iteration, I don't know if it would have been in any iteration because Carrie Fisher also wrote the adaptation. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, something tells me that the book probably just got into more detail with everything from the substance abuse topics to the relationship between the mother and daughter and like all of that stuff. Not to say that was necessarily lacking in this movie, but it felt to me a little bit surface level. But I did like the dynamic between the two of them. Like it felt like a real relationship, and I liked that. I thought that everything between the two of them was quite organic and good and like just believable. I liked all that.
It's very well outlined and written and conceived for this scene because there's never a point where we have to be, introduced to their dynamic or how they relate to each other. It is in this very direct and evident way. We're put into it, and it's thanks to the writing and thanks to the performances that we're just kind of we're absolutely able to pick up with these characters immediately and kind of figure out.
I also like
the
that.
Exact the relationship.
I also like that it's not like anything insane was happening. Like a lot of these movies, they have like some kind of big, crescendo moment in the climax that changes everything, and it's like, this wild thing that happens, and
they even kind of say that's even a line of dialogue, like exchange in the movie. They all talk about making movies, and so they talk about kind of the different ways that they're telling stories in movies, and they even say, in real life you don't have these kind of big realizations that change your life all at once.
Yeah. And I liked that too. So overall, I think that this was a surprise. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. But came away from it feeling pretty good. I like it. Good stuff. Worth a look. Postcards from the Edge. All right, our next movie is Wilder Napalm is the name of this movie. Came out in 1993. I have a synopsis here. Two brothers with the secret power of starting fires with their minds reunite after years apart only to find conflict with their differing lifestyles. This is directed by Glenn Gordon Caron and stars Deborah Winger, Dennis Quaid, and Arliss Howard. So this is the movie that gave you the idea of doing the Quaid episode, right? This is the one.
I was just, looking at the IMDb, finding random things. And then I was actually on Dennis Quaid's filmography because I had some idea for a show that would have involved possibly, a couple of his movies. And I came across this. I was just looking at his whole 90s filmography. I came across this. I read the log line, and, once you read what on the IMDb, two brothers with the secret power of starting fires with their minds reunite after years apart, only to find conflict with their differing lifestyles, you want to know more. And so I kind of just started putting this whole episode together just so we could talk about this and I could, watch it.
Well, yeah. And this is by far the craziest movie that we're going to be talking about this month. I'd never heard of this before. So I'm glad that you discovered this gem and brought it to my attention, because this movie's pretty nuts. I feel like every month we have one movie that's just really, really out there. And
I think, yeah. I think we get different contours of it. Like, this is a movie where it's just like everything that happens in this plot is absolutely just bizarre. But, then there's sometimes a movie where it's like the experience of watching this movie makes me wonder if I'm currently, if I'm currently seeing what I'm seeing, or I'm just hallucinating all of it. And we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this movie it feels very much like one of these kind of gonzo 90s, almost, like there were so many of these movies that came out around this time that were like really weird and out there and had very kind of absurdist themes and things. And a lot of them tended to be like kind of gross out comedies. Like I'm thinking of like Freaked and that one with Bill Paxton. I can't remember the name of it. There were a lot of these kind of movies that were just a little bit off kilter, and this definitely fits that bill, where it's overly quirky, little weird, a little bit kind of a little bit. I don't know. It wasn't really a gross out movie, but it was. I don't know.
It's a movie that is definitely trying to do a lot in very peculiar ways. Like, I think sometimes on this podcast we'll talk about movies where, some mid-budget movie that's not obviously marketed towards like, with some IP connection, and we'll say, oh, this is a movie where it wouldn't go out in 2,000 theaters today. It would go directly to streaming. You look at a movie like this, and there's no like contemporary parallel. Like, a studio would just not have made this movie like any time except for the early to mid 1990s.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So what you have here, just to expand on this synopsis a little bit, is Arliss Howard. He has the ability to start fires with his mind, but due to an unfortunate incident that happened when he and his brother were children, the brother being Dennis Quaid, he really doesn't use his powers that much. And he works as a volunteer firefighter, and he also works in a photo booth, which I'm sure that Ken, you're way too young to remember those things, where they used to have these photo booths set up in like strip mall parking lots where you could just pull up and like drop your film off, and then like later in the week or whatever, go and pick up your photos.
I never used one. I'm familiar with them conceptually, and I always think that must have been a very odd place to work, because you're kind of outside and kind of not at the same time.
Yeah. I think the best example of that, aside from this movie, of course, is Pete and Pete, the pilot episode of Pete and Pete, where Ellen works in the photo booth and she uses the photos to track the Mr. Tasty. Classic.
Did we talk about that on the show?
I don't know.
I know we talked about some Pete, but
yeah, I don't know if we talked about that episode. I hope we did, because that's like the classic episode. It's the pilot. It's the first one. But anyway, getting back to this movie, the circus rolls into town, and Dennis Quaid, his brother, he's a clown, and he shows off. He uses his fire abilities to like as part of his act in the circus, and he has like these big dreams of going on TV, going on Letterman, and on top of that, so the two of them are estranged. They haven't spoken in like 5 years, and I guess Dennis Quaid's character had some sort of relationship with Deborah Winger, but something happened, and then Arliss Howard's character, Wilder, he ends up marrying Deborah Winger's character, and she's on house arrest. You don't find out why until later, but and then a love triangle forms between the three of them, and it's just a kind of a goofy, wacky movie. It's a little bit irreverent, and it's exactly what you would kind of expect from one of these quirky 90s comedies. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it.
I think it's trying to do too much, especially in the second half.
I like I kind of like the visuals. Like
it's a very interesting looking movie.
It's very colorful. It has a lot of kind of oddball moments to it. And I thought that the pyrotechnics were actually very good in this. I mean, this is before the days of CG fire. And so a lot of the fire stuff in this is like real fire that they're using to do different things. And I thought that all the fire effects were quite good. Even that scene when Dennis Quaid's on fire, and it's clearly like, obviously he's not really on fire, but I still think it looked really good for the time.
Yeah, it's a good effect.
It was like some kind of compositing or something they did, but yeah, I thought it looked really good. Jim Varney's in here, and any movie that has Jim Varney in instantly gets some bonus points from me, because I love Jim Varney. And he played a great role as like a carny, like kind of the head carny guy in this. So
also got Emmett Walsh in here as the fire chief. I believe at some point, I don't know, I don't think I said this on the podcast. I think it was offline. There's a certain era of movie where I think you have to have Emmett Walsh in it. Like, was it a law or something?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be one of the most prolific character actors, and he's still doing it too. He's still rocking it out.
To be clear, if it was a law, it was a good law. Yeah,
the dude's like 800 years old, but he's like still. What did I just see him in recently? I saw him in Knives Out. No, that's not what... I mean, he was in Knives Out, but that's not what I was thinking of. I was thinking of something else, but He was on the Righteous
it's hard
Gen.
to say because he's still in everything. He's just one of those great character actors, like because you can't ever imagine him being a young person. Like,
No.
people always talk about guys where like you can't imagine they ever looked young, and I think he's definitely in that category.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember his role in The Jerk and the scene with the oil cans and stuff. And that was in 79 and he looked the same. I mean, it's pretty nuts.
We
What a prolific career though, man.
Yeah.
He's like he's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I liked the kind of the fight scenes between the two brothers. I thought that was, kind of clever. They were the way they like shoot fireballs at each other and stuff and blow things up and melt things. I thought that was all fine. I wasn't a fan of the love triangle aspect because the way that like Deborah Winger's character was I didn't like her character. I didn't like the way she acted. I felt like it was I don't know. I don't know how to describe how I felt about her character, but it didn't feel right. Like her actions didn't seem right to me. And
it's one of the problems with the movie more broadly, which is that it's trying to do so much. It's trying to make every person in this movie so eccentric and everything in this world so eccentric. I mean, well, dare I ask how you felt about the singing firemen?
Oh yeah, actually I liked that. I liked the the like acapella group as the
naturally, there's four of the firemen who appear through this movie are sing.
I liked that. I thought that was
I think the individual ideas in this movie are interesting. The individual characters are interesting, but it's just so much trying to put all of these together in one movie, like trying to fit everything into it, that I think it's not a movie that doesn't communicate very well with itself after a certain point. And I think this goes to this movie was written by Vince Gilligan.
Which is wild, by the way.
Yeah, which I think it was his like first script that got made into a movie, and like this definitely has first script energy to it.
Oh sure, yeah, where they're like really trying to flex. They're like really trying to get their name out there.
Yeah.
This I can't say as I see too much Breaking Bad in this, but I don't know. Maybe if you look hard enough, you can see it.
Yeah. Well, if it's... Yeah, I think there were like two really early scripts that he wrote, and this was the first one that got made.
It's pretty funny.
The other one is 1998's Home Fries, which I know nothing about.
I'm slightly familiar with Home Fries, the one with Drew Barrymore and Luke Wilson. I'm a little bit familiar with that.
Are there any singing firefighters in it?
No. Oh. Not that I can recall, at least.
Seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add about Wilder Napalm? It's a weird movie. Like it's not your typical rom-com, that's for sure.
It's a weird movie, and if it were like 20 minutes shorter, I would have no problem telling people to watch it. But it just gets to the point where it's just, I think it's just...
Oh, it overstays its welcome big time.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like...
It gets too busy.
The other thing is like, I don't think it's funny. Like, it's just not...
It's also not funny.
It's just not, it's not funny. And like, some scenes linger on for so long, and you're just like, come on, let's... Like the lawn, like the scene when he's mowing the lawn... like over and just going around the trailer over and over and over again. Like, let's go. Come on. There's some sequences in this movie that had me feeling very impatient. But it's still, if you're looking for one of those, if you're in the market for one of those kind of weird 90s comedies, then here you go. It's
I'm not gonna tell people to go see it, to go look for it. But at the same time, it's not a altogether unpleasant experience.
Yeah, I would say if you're curious, definitely at least watch the trailer to get an idea.
That's the pull quote they could use. Not an altogether unpleasant experience.
Yeah. All right, so that is Wilder Napalm. Let's move on and talk about Dragonheart from 1996. This is directed by Rob Cohen. I have a synopsis here. The last dragon and a disillusioned dragon-slaying knight must cooperate to stop an evil king who was given partial immortality. So this is the first in what would become a series of 4 movies. I could not bring myself to watch any of the sequels.
Looks like there are 5 in total.
Oh, are there?
Yeah, there was Dragonheart, Dragonheart: A New Beginning, Dragonheart 3: The Sorcerer's Curse, Dragonheart: Battle for the Heartfire, Dragonheart: Battle for the Heartfire. Someone needed to work on that one. And 2020's Dragonheart: Vengeance.
Oh, I missed Vengeance. I didn't see that one on the list. I saw up to 4. 4 was the one with Patrick Stewart voicing the dragon. So the dragon in this one is voiced by Sean Connery. And I think that that's the first issue that I had with this movie, is that the talking dragon thing doesn't really work for me. I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that the dragon could talk. It felt weird. Especially there's like a scene when Dennis Quaid, who's the dragon slaying knight that it mentions in the synopsis, when he's fighting Sean Connery, the dragon, and he's like in the dragon's mouth, and he has his sword up in like the roof of the dragon's mouth, and they're kind of at a stalemate, and they're like having a conversation, and he's like, the dragon's still somehow able to talk to Dennis Quaid, and I'm like, how's that work? Like, your mouth is open as far as it can go, and yet you're still able to like pronounce all of your words correctly, like B's and P's and letters that require you to have your mouth closed.
Maybe dragon anatomy's different.
It could be. Maybe they have some sort of like inner thing going on, like a set of lips inside their mouth.
They have a second.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. That's probably what it is. I detracted. I don't think I had an issue with it anymore with the talking dragons.
It's like
that fixes all the issues that I had with this movie. I love it now.
I don't know. Yeah, that was just my whole thing. Isn't there that thing that cows have 2 stomachs or something? I think I read they don't actually. People say that.
Oh, really? I always thought that they did.
I don't know. I thought I read someone, because it feels like I think I did. Let's try and settle that now on the podcast. But while I'm still talking, I'll look that up. Because I thought I read some point that wasn't true. But yeah, I think you're kind of arriving on something here. That's also what I arrived on with this movie as my problem. Like, I think the problem here is that it's obviously aimed at kind of a general younger audience, but it doesn't know if it wants to be kind of more of a grown-up sort of fantasy story for them to work into, or it wants to just have, dragon banter.
Yeah, and that's one of the big issues that I had with this, is that, like, just tonally it's all over. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's a PG-13 movie, so there is more violence in this and more adult content than what you might expect with a talking dragon movie. But then you have these like kind of goofy, whimsical scenes, like the scene that I mentioned where he's fighting the dragon. They play this like really light, jaunty music while he's trying to slay this beast, and the whole time you're just like, who is this for? Who is this movie for? Because I don't think older people are going to like it because it's stupid, and I don't think young kids would be allowed to watch it because, you know, there is some questionable themes in here. I mean, you see there's blood, there's people who die.
Yeah.
There's sort of the thing with like the king kind of forcing himself with the young woman. You know, you don't see anything or nothing's even really implied, but it's like it could, you know, it was starting to go that way.
There is real menace to this, to what happens in this movie, or could happen in this movie, certainly.
Yeah, so it's like it's definitely not for kids, but again, like it was just so dumb. Like so many scenes with the dragon were like how they would scam villages and stuff and like pretend to shoot the dragon, and like it was just so silly and dumb. Like I really didn't like any of that stuff. This is a movie that I have seen before. I saw it in middle school, believe it or not. This was like one of those random movies that teachers play for you. I don't know. I don't remember if it was like a substitute teacher situation or if it was like, you know, towards the end of the year when they just check out and put on movies. It was one of those deals. But I remember watching this in middle school and just hating it so much. You know, you got a lot of, it's all CG too, which is interesting. So you got a lot of mid 90s CG going on.
Definitely carries its own charms.
So,
yeah, I mean, it is interesting to look at in those respects. I also have an answer on our cow stomach question. It appears that, I think, after consulting some sources that are not probably sufficiently scholarly, it looks like cows kind of are an animal that has like a stomach with multiple, like 4 compartments, and so sometimes they say that they have 4 stomachs, I guess, actually is the thing, not 2, but it seems like it's really a kind of a stomach that kind of just operates differently than we think of, like, you know, in humans, and so there's different compartments and processes in it. That seems to be my understanding. That's what I was trying to look up while I was talking about the right level of dragon banter for this movie to have. But that's what I concluded. You should look at other better sources. This is not. I am not an expert on farm animals.
Not an expert on the cow stomachs.
I am certainly not an expert on cow stomachs. Yeah, I'll say another thing I like about this movie is for much longer than I knew what this movie was about, I had heard the score. I think the score is relatively famous.
Yeah, it's a good score. I'll give it that.
Big sweeping fantasy score.
Yeah, it's a very good score. I will give it that, but that's really all I'll give it. I do not like this movie at all. I don't have a good time with this movie. I did not want to see the sequels after I watched this one. It was just as bad as what I remembered as a kid. In fact, I knew because any movie that I didn't like as a kid, I know for sure now that there's no way I'm going to like it. That's not always true, but it's mostly true. And yeah, I just didn't. I don't like the where they go with it, like the dragon stuff. I also felt like Dennis Quaid's motivation was really weird when, like, so the whole premise here is that Dennis Quaid is like he's like the teacher. He's like the bodyguard, tutor, whatever of the prince at the beginning. And there's a big battle where the king dies. The prince picks up the crown, but then he accidentally gets killed for being a dum-dum, really. He basically gets accidentally pushed into a beam that has like a spike sticking out of it, and it goes right into his heart. So they go talk to this dragon, and the dragon gives half of his heart to this new king with the promise that he's gonna like be a peaceful, merciful king and live a rule in a just manner and all this stuff. And he turns out to be like a nightmare. Like the dude's a psychopath.
Hmm.
Played by David Thewlis, by the way, who is always a good villain. And
Hmm.
and then Dennis Quaid goes back to the dragon, and he's like, "It's your fault. Like you made him this way, so now I'm gonna kill every single dragon ever." And it just feels really weird. Like he's like, I don't know, like those motivations are weird. And then after he meets Sean Connery, he doesn't realize right away that that's the dragon that gave the king the heart. It's like, how would you
Yeah.
not recognize that dragon right away?
Also that they make a whole big deal out about how like he's the last dragon left, so it's not like you'd be seeing a lot of them around, you know.
Right. And also, like, process of elimination here.
Yes.
So, yeah, I didn't really enjoy any of this. And I like fantasy movies for the most part too. But I don't know, man. Like this one, I couldn't get past like the dragon stuff, which is a pretty big part of the movie.
Yes. You would have liked Dragonheart more without the
Without
dragon.
without those damn
Heart.
dragons.
Heart. You would have appreciated if it was
It
just
was
called
just called
Heart.
Heart.
Not to be confused with the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just about Dennis Quaid fighting David Thewlis. We're doing this episode about Dennis Quaid, and we've not really talked about it that much.
Yeah, the thing about Dennis Quaid, I like Dennis Quaid for the most part, but him in this role didn't necessarily work for me either. It's not that he was bad in the role, but I feel like this just wasn't the right fit for him, because I had a hard time believing that Dennis Quaid would exist in the Middle Ages, like during this time. It was sort of like Christian Slater in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. When you see Christian Slater in that world, you're like, nah. Christian Slater's like, he doesn't fit. He doesn't fit in this scenario. And I felt kind of the same way about Dennis Quaid. Like he looked the part, but just his acting didn't necessarily sell me on the whole, like, yeah, this is a knight in the Middle Ages and there's dragons. Like that just didn't really work for me.
Hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna agree. It's like, yeah, it's an interesting casting choice. I like that they put him in this leading role because it is a pretty inspired decision because it doesn't immediately seem obvious. But yeah, I mean, he's good in it. Like, there's not a bad performance in this movie. It's just like I don't know if all these, you know. Again, I think we just returned to I don't know what this movie wants them to do.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the sequels, like if the sequels keep the same tone and style. Like, are the sequels terribly confusing with like who it's for as well? Like, what, I don't know. I also, like, Sean Connery is the last dragon in this, and spoiler, he dies at the end and like turns into like an orange mist and goes into the stars. He like turns into
Yeah,
stars.
he becomes part of the Draco constellation.
And I know that I think I saw that like in the sequel, there's a Drago with a G, and then there's a Drake. And I'm not sure the other ones. Those are just like the ones that I saw for the sequels. So I guess like all of the sequels are, they must take place in like other realities, other timelines.
Yeah, it it looks like Dragonheart 3, The Sorcerer's Curse. According to this, is set in the ninth century, so it's a prequel. It's uh before the events of the original Dragonheart, and then they've got Drago with a G, uh, voiced by Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
But then
I know for a fact that some of those other sequels say blah 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 the Last Dragon.
I guess these are all prequels then. There's no sequel to Dragonheart. Apparently Dragonheart: The New Beginning is a sequel, and I guess it's kind of like, it's like many sequels after the last one dies. It turns out there was another dragon egg.
So he's the real Last Dragon.
I suppose so.
Got it.
That's the events in Dragonheart: A New Beginning, which we will never discuss on this podcast.
Nope.
I mean, even if it wasn't released in 2000, we'd still never discuss it on this podcast.
Yep. I just, for a lot of these movies that we cover that are franchises, I don't mind going through them. Sometimes it's fun because they're like, a lot of them are fun bad, but, and I'm talking about like the sequels to a lot of these franchises, but like, I just didn't see the Dragonheart sequels being fun bad because I didn't think that the original one was fun bad. I just thought it was not fun and also pretty bad. It's not, to be clear, like I don't know if I hated this movie or anything like that. I just really didn't enjoy myself watching it, and I just, at the end of the day, I don't think that this is a movie for me. I like fun, kind of lighter-hearted fantasy movies. I just saw the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But this one just didn't work for me on any level. One thing that I was grateful for, though, was I was a little worried that they were going to shoehorn in a love story between Dennis Quaid and Dina Meyer's characters, Bowen and Kara. And they didn't really do that, and I kind of liked that they at least had the I don't know, constitution to not go there with it, because it would have been weird anyway, because she was like a kid at the beginning, but Dennis Quaid's character was still like Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, I mean, they do say that they go on to rule the kingdom together, but you can interpret that in a...
Oh, do they? I didn't remember that.
I think that's what they pack there's a lot packed into like the last run of like the last bit of narration at the end, but you could interpret that.
I'm going to assume that they didn't get together, because I think it'd be weird.
They could have been co-rulers in a purely platonic sense.
I think it would have been weird if they did, because I think the age gap was too great there.
Yeah. There's also Dragonheart Vengeance. That's the newest one. That's the dragon being voiced Sivith or Sivith, or is this a reference to something that I'm not understanding and I'm making myself look like an idiot by not knowing how to say it?
I don't think so. Dragonheart Vengeance.
Sivith, Sivith. I don't know if there's a pronunciation guide to this. Anyway, it's she's the dragon in the newest one. She's voiced by Helena Bonham Carter. Even for the deep direct-to-video Dragonheart movies now, you can get really famous performers to voice them because it's all voice role. They can just... Yeah,
and they probably did it from like sitting on their couch at home.
Yeah, they can record it at home and just send the lines in.
Yeah.
That's easy.
But it's...
Why is there no pronunciation guide on how to pronounce the name of the dragon in Dragonheart Vengeance?
I don't know. They need to work on that.
Surely people must be curious. I guess I could watch it. Like, that's not a reference. That's not the name of a constellation or anything.
I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. You should probably cut some of this. This is not good for the listeners.
Dragonheart Vengeance, and I like just looking at the screenshots here, or the stills rather. The CG somehow looks worse in Dragonheart Vengeance than it did in the original one from 1996. Which, by the way, like we didn't talk about the CG too much. it was pretty good for 96. Like, it was not great, and it's horrible for today's standards, but for 96, I think it was pretty good. And again, this was before they could really do CG fire, so they had to come up with some clever ways to incorporate real fire into the CG dragon, which I thought looked really good and worked very well. So there's another positive that I'll say about Dragonheart, but that's where I'm going to leave it.
I recommend the score. Then again, you've probably heard a bunch because this feels like something where it's like, I'm sure it's been in a bunch of trailers. It's probably in like at least every other,
I think this was reused.
Award show montage. Like, I'm sure this has been in a bunch of Oscars clip packages.
I think so. Cool. So that's Dragonheart. Not for me. The final movie we're going to be talking about this month is Any Given Sunday. This is directed by Oliver Stone. A behind-the-scenes look at the life and death struggles of modern-day gladiators and those who lead them.
You would not know what this movie is about if you just read that log line.
You wouldn't, but it's perfect in a lot of ways. Yeah. This log line is perfect for this movie because it's so over the top and ridiculous.
That is exactly... Folks, I think if you remember a couple months ago when we were discussing Bingo, a movie that I still think you should watch right now, I just told you to go look at the poster. Look up the poster, pull it up, look at it. Because I was like, you're not going to believe the poster for Bingo, and you're not going to believe the movie we're describing to you. For different reasons, I'm going to ask you to do that again. Go on Google or whatever, look up the poster for Any Given Sunday. Look at it. Is this not the most 1999 poster you've ever seen in your life?
And you know what? That's the theatrical poster too. I remember because I saw this movie in the theater, and I remember seeing that poster and being like, oh my God, what a horrendous. You got the blue, you got the orange, you got the floating heads.
Blue and orange are back here on this poster. That's not the first time we've talked about that.
I mean, it is.
I like
the
outline of the. This is a movie about football, professional American football. In case you didn't know, I got the outline of the football player with the silhouette and more orange, and in the background is what looks like probably every single frame in the movie.
Yeah, it's just this mosaic of like every still image of the movie.
Which probably, there's only 6 billed actors in this here, but there's like several thousand people in this movie with speaking parts.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie.
That is because this movie is, I think, 10 hours long.
Oh, at least. Yeah, this is like 10, 12 hours long. And
this is the movie. Yeah, it's 10 hours long. I think the average shot length is about 4 frames.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the shot list for this is like 1,000 pages long, and
and like 2-point font.
and no single shot is longer than like 4 seconds. It is the most chaotic, insane movie. Like, I understand, like I can sort of understand what Oliver Stone was going for here. He wanted to, convey the chaos of professional football and like everything that goes into it and stuff. But the thing is, the movie, it is such a train wreck, and it is so much. There's so much going on, and it is nonstop, and it's so much of it is like pointless filler. Like it'll be like a scene of 2 people having a conversation, and Stone can't even just let that happen. Like, it's not even like shot, reverse shot, like anything like that. He cuts away to like palm trees, that'll cut away to like people in the stands, and it's like random slow motion of like a guy on a skateboard, or like like black and white crazy Dutch angles, and it's like there's so much going on all the time in this movie. It's absolutely exhausting. As someone who, like, this is the opposite of my preferred style of movie making. Like, it is the exact opposite. I like super long takes, meticulous shots, as few cuts as possible. And then, this movie comes along and it's just an explosion of chaos.
Yeah, I was looking through like some of just because I have no idea what people would think about this movie, and I think that reactions all over the place, and I was just looking through like the most popular reviews on Letterboxd just to try and like what are the different takes people have out of curiosity, and I think like in the first 2 pages there were like 5 different reviews that were like this just feels like if cocaine was a movie or something.
Yeah, and I remember when I saw this in the theater, I was a teenager and I don't know if I was excited for it necessarily. I don't think I was, but back then I would just see everything. And like, I just remember sitting there in the theater being so overwhelmed by it and like laughing. I remember laughing with my friends at some of the ridiculous stuff that's in this movie and some of the absolutely horrid cutaways and like random slow-mo stuff that happens. It's just,
there are 4 editors credited on this movie. I'm looking at that now.
I mean, it is just,
and like not like, yeah, it's hard to imagine. Are there 4 people editing and working on this movie, or were they just all editing each other?
Yeah, I bet they were all in the same room, all editing the same movie at the same time. But they all had to edit over each other. They were editing the same
all of
scenes.
Their edit lines were put on top of each other,
yeah.
And they put that out as the movie.
Yeah.
This, I think we've kind of established at this point on the show that our take is that, like, I don't know, Armageddon was like the most like the most movie we've ever talked about. This though. This is a fair contender for that title. Maybe only losing because it's not literally about a giant asteroid about to collide with the Earth.
No, but
it kind of feels like it could be.
Yeah, the stakes, the stakes in this movie are in reality very low, but at the same time are presented as being like, if they don't win this game, they're all gonna die. Like, they're all dead.
Like, there's a bunch of, like, Oliver Stone makes a bunch of serious observations about professional football, talks about injuries and talks about like the racism in the league, but doesn't focus on any of those serious subjects as much as he's just talking about, like, I don't even know what he's talking about, but that's not what he has decided what this movie should really be about, but I can't figure out what he's decided it should be about.
Yeah, it is interesting that he does talk about like the injuries thing, and because this was before that was really, at least from what I remember, could be wrong, but I don't recall it being as much of a talking point as it is today.
Yeah.
Like all of the, because I think that people didn't know, we didn't have enough or as much research as we do now on the effects of repeated. I
mean, especially head injuries.
Yes,
but this one's just more broadly about injuries in general and how
they're
treated. Yeah.
You have like so Dennis Quaid plays Cap, who's like, he's like the old, and all these, so many of these sports movies follow the same formula, like Major League, where Tom Berenger plays like the old guy on the team. He's the veteran, and his body's failing him. And that's Dennis Quaid's character in this. And he suffers an injury at the beginning of the movie, during a game, which, by the way, the movie starts off in the middle of a game, and it hits the ground running, boy. Like, they don't introduce characters. They just, Oliver Stone's like, you know what? You'll catch up later if you're lucky.
You said you saw this in the theater, and I want to know if you have any particular memories of like this like the visceral experience of watching this in the theater. Like, because the sound mix on this movie is absolutely out of control.
Yeah.
Like, this is the loudest movie I've ever seen, and I watched it at home on my laptop.
Yeah, I mean it's nuts. Like I will say like that opening scene is, I mean, it's very visceral, it's loud, it's well shot, but it like the fact that the first time, you know, when you first go through it, you're like, whoa, but then like it wears out its welcome like very quickly.
Yeah, like like the sound is crazy. Like in every single, hit, every single play. I think if you plug in headphones and try to watch this movie, iTunes should have to give you a health warning first. Like, are you really sure you want to have this beam directly into your
Yeah.
ears?
Your speakers are about to blow out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. But I mean, and this is like such a sprawling movie too. Like, it just never ends. Like, it just keeps going and going. Right when you think that it's going to be over, it's like, nah, you got like 40 minutes left, buddy. Strap in, strap in, because we're not even close. And yeah, so it's pretty wild. So you have Dennis Quaid gets injured, then they have to go to their second string quarterback. He gets injured like right away, like first play, he's out. And then they have to go to their third string, who is this rookie named Willie Beeman, played by Jamie Foxx. And like he's like he's like a diamond in the rough here. You know, he's this kind of hotshot all-star newcomer, and he's gonna like help them get to the playoffs. But he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, so they better watch out. And you have Al Pacino in here as the coach, loudmouth coach. Perfect role for him. I mean, this is like definitely. I think this is probably would become one of his more famous roles.
Yeah. I liked just doing some of the random trivia, like the IMDb trivia section, which of course we know is always completely true. And it's like Al Pacino liked playing this role because he thought it was a refreshing change from the usual cops and gangsters he's often play. How is this? This is just Al Pacino. This is like peak Al Pacino.
Yeah.
This is not a change. He's just like, if anything, it's more Al Pacino.
It's the most Al Pacino.
Most Al Pacino. This is like,
yeah, like when you do an Al Pacino impersonation,
you're doing this movie whether you've seen it or not.
Yeah, a lot of times you're doing this movie.
He literally has like the like, if anything has become famous out of this movie, it's probably the speech that he gives at the end.
Yeah.
The "Life is a Game of Inches" speech. You hear that like a bunch, like yeah.
Yeah, so you have Pacino in here. He's great. Iconic role for him. Cameron Diaz, who plays the owner of the team, which, by the way, the team name is the Miami Sharks.
Yes.
I thought I remember reading something about that whole thing with like not being able to get the actual NFL license, but
Yeah,
I can't remember the story behind that.
yeah, I believe the story so goes is that the NFL did not want to loan any of their franchise names or symbols or imagery at all for this movie. And so they made up a fake league. I don't even, did they say the name of the league in the movie? Or
No, I think they just, you know what?
Yeah.
I think they did actually say it at the beginning, but it was like ATL. I don't know.
It's like
It was,
it's like the fakest sounding fake football franchise. It's like I found it. Apparently, it's the Affiliated Football Franchises of America, which is so like, we're just doing a fake name here. Yeah, they call themselves the Miami Sharks, and as extra cover, they also specifically reference the Miami Dolphins also existing.
do they? I didn't remember that. Yeah.
I think there are like direct, like there's like a couple of invocations of the Miami Dolphins, just so like
So
you
yeah,
could say,
it's like
yeah.
it's like on
Yeah.
like on Law and Order SVU, when they
Yeah.
clearly make an episode that's about something, ripped from the headlines, but then they mention that
And they
real
mentioned the
case.
thing, like its
Just
cover. Yeah.
yeah, just so everybody knows, no, we're not actually
No.
directly referencing that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is a world where this movie's set in a world where there are two major, I guess, I mean, of course, there have always been, trying to, competing like off-season football leagues besides the NFL, but this is a world where there are two major professional football leagues because it seems like this is very, very major.
Yeah.
They both have teams in Miami, but their names are just the Dolphins and the Sharks.
All of the team names and logos in this movie are so horrendously bad. I mean, it really does feel like it's a joke. Like, if
I like that the Super Bowl of the AFFA is called the Pantheon Cup. Like, if there's anything faker than affiliated football franchises of America, it's the Pantheon Cup.
I think the first team they play, or one of the teams they play, is just called the Americans, and their logo is just an American flag.
Is that listen? You could tell me that, and it could be true, and I would believe it. I mean,
I'm pretty sure.
this movie's not working in my head. This movie's not working in my brain. This movie is causing some level of pain. Yeah, no. Yeah, I found a PDF of the script. The script, by the way, I don't know if this is just like there's like, the pages that spill. Yeah, the script of this movie is 241 pages long.
Ooh, you know what? That doesn't surprise me though. I mean, just
yeah, because it's not even like, there's just so much dialogue.
Even during the football, even during the actual like football scenes, there's still nonstop talking from like the sidelines and like when you're getting in with the team and stuff. So yeah,
in every game, there's a game. There's a game happening. There's a bunch of plays happening there, and there are also like 15 different conversations also happening.
Yeah, there's like Cameron Diaz in the owner's
Minnesota
box,
American.
and then there's like Aaron Eckhart up in the he's like the offensive coordinator or something, and then you got James Woods and Matthew Modine as like the doctors treating people. So it's so much. There's just so much.
Sometimes treating being a very generous way to describe what they're doing.
Yeah.
The script describes that team, the Minnesota Americans.
Yes.
Which, the first thing, like, in the real, in the NFL, they have the Houston Texans, but at least that's the name of the state.
Right.
That's not just the name of the country. This is, I love all of the visual overlays in this movie. I love how the scoreboard actually just comes up. Like the score bug. There's a score bug like on the screen of the movie, not on a TV. You get the score of the game on the screen while the game is happening.
As if we're gonna watch anything any more than like 5 minutes of any game, or can actually sit there long enough to watch an entire play from beginning to end.
Yeah, this movie is not actually showing you any actual thing at all.
Just, I mean, like the football scenes, I think, are probably well shot, but the fact that it's so frantic,
I couldn't pay attention. I was too busy. Like my ears were. Another thing, I love the we're talking about the main cast. We have to talk about the supporting cast because it's just crazy. Like there's a bunch of like, actual football cameos, but then they just bring these people in for like one scene each, where it's like, oh, like here's Cameron Diaz's character, who, by the way, I think is a lot more of an interesting character than the movie seems to think she is. Like she's, she gets the team because it was her. She inherits the team after her father dies, and she's not really trusted because she's bringing new strategies to running the team, and they think she's going to sell it or move it or Anyway, so there's a bunch of there's like 3 scenes with her mother, and then you're like, oh, that's her mother. Like, oh wait, that's Anne Margaret.
Yeah.
And then there's like scenes with like the commissioner of the affiliated football franchise American. And you're
Charlton
like,
Heston.
That's Charlton Heston.
Yeah. It's so crazy.
This movie, you know, it's not very. This is the most 1999 movie ever made because this feels like. I know this meant something different, but this movie feels like the end of history.
Yeah. And you have Elizabeth Berkley in there as well, of course.
Yeah, I stand Elizabeth Berkley on this podcast. Yeah, we've got her. She's like also in like one scene. Like, I want to be clear, everyone except like the main 6 people that get top billing on this poster are in this movie for one scene each.
Yeah. Bill Bellamy's in here too, which is kind of interesting. You want to talk about 90s people prolific in the 90s, like Bill Bellamy. He was everywhere back then, but then he just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned LL Cool J. He was in here too.
I think we might have. I think our review's kind of turning into the movie though.
Yeah. This is after LL Cool J made a pretty successful transition into acting. I think he had been acting for a little while at this point, and I think that by this time he had actually like gotten some acting chops, and I think he does a really good job in this. And Jim Brown's in here too, for a pretty short amount of time, but you know, he's great. It's a wild movie, man. Like,
to be clear, I think people should see this movie.
It's something.
I think you should see it because I think you think we're exaggerating.
Oh yeah, and we can't forget that Oliver Stone himself is in this as a commentator.
Yeah. I think if you don't know much about the existence of this movie, you should see it because you think that we're making things up, but we're not. If anything, we're sort of constrained by the fact that we can only describe what we saw.
Yeah.
It's sort of beyond description. The feeling of this movie is beyond description.
I would say that if you're not familiar with this movie, maybe like watch a trailer and then understand that whatever you see in that trailer is not like stylized editing for the trailer. It's the actual movie that you're potentially going to watch.
I haven't seen the trailer.
I haven't either, but I'm just assuming that.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was the first trailer that's actually cut slower than the movie. Because they have to actually set up a little bit about what it's about in the trailer, and you couldn't do that if you were cutting at the speed of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are a lot of trailers, usually like the poorly made trailers, that do basically what Any Given Sunday is as a whole, where they, you know, cut in random B-roll of stuff and slow down scenes that definitely shouldn't be slowed down for no reason. You know, it's just like the whole movie feels like a poorly cut trailer.
I think people like talk about, like, I think when we talked about Armageddon, this really is I think if you put a double feature, if you were to spend, you know, remember a while ago we talked about movies that we would review for a podcast where we only release it while the world is ending?
Yeah.
Because it was just like the really long, like 3-hour movies we didn't want to talk about elsewhere. You know, it would be a good double feature if the world was ending in, you know, 5 hours. Any Given Sunday and Armageddon.
God.
You'd be ready for the apocalypse after that, because if anything, it'd be a little slower.
All I know is that I'm glad that we didn't watch this movie for like an Oliver Stone themed episode, because if I had to like do this with Natural Born Killers and JFK, I don't know if I'd be able to handle it. It'd be too much.
I did have the idea once that maybe we just do 1 month where we only do two movies because these movies are too long, and it's just like we do the Oliver Stone presidency movies. We do like JFK and Nixon because there would only be the two. We wouldn't do four movies.
No, no.
We could just do those two, and those would be 6 hours.
Yeah. I think pairing this with Natural Born Killers would be a total that sounds like an instant migraine if you watch those back to back, because those two, both of those movies are just way too much.
You know what's a crazy fact about this movie? The you've got the director's cut is the version that is on home media, and then there's a theatrical cut, and the theatrical cut is longer. The director's cut is 157 minutes, and the theatrical cut is 163 minutes. And according to a claim on the Wikipedia article with a citation needed tag on it, so you know it's the good stuff. Oliver Stone, apparently, he went to the director's cut. He went to the theatrical cut. He took 12 minutes out of it, and then he added back in 6 minutes of footage that they made him take out of the theatrical cut.
It's weird. What a weird thing.
That's terrific. That's such a great fact. I love when the director's cut is shorter than the theatrical cut. Is that a you think that's an oddly specific letterbox list to talk about?
Probably.
Last month? Director's cuts where it's shorter.
I wonder if that is that Blade Runner is that Blade Runner director's cut? I wonder if that's shorter. Probably not. I'd be curious to know what other director's cuts are shorter than the theatrical cuts.
You see that occasionally, and I treasure it every time for some reason, because I'm like, there's a fascinating story about the editing bay in this movie. I just love if we're going to talk about movies that no studio would actually make today, you would not make this movie and put it in wide release.
No, this movie.
You could probably make something like this and make it like a streaming thing or a premium cable thing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't like. Yeah, it's feasible.
I think. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past like Netflix to.
Yeah, this is kind of prestige miniseries stuff. There would be one with this plot. Actually, it might be better to follow from like a traditional like plotting perspective, because there'd be more time to kind of work through this, because otherwise it's like, I'm Oliver Stone. It's like this movie's coming to us like, I'm Oliver Stone. I've got so many thoughts about football, about the corporations, about everything about this country, and I have to say them all in 157 minutes.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I do, in a way. On one hand, I think that this would probably work better as a mini series, because it would give you the time to flesh out all of these different aspects. It'd be like The Wire or something. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if you didn't alter like how this is shot with the like frantic editing and cuts, it would be an absolute nightmare to visit that for an hour every week. I should have added, and in this TV miniseries version of it, I'm imagining it's a little bit calmed down more. Yeah, I would hope so. And that's the thing. Like, I think on the surface, I think that it is a fairly entertaining and topical sports film, but
no, it's definitely, there's interesting stuff going on here.
It's just so inaccessible. Like, I mean, I just don't know anybody who would watch this and be like, yeah, this is really working for me. I know exactly what he's saying. I love what's happening here. I can definitely tell what's going on.
I think Oliver Stone is addressing all of his points very well and capably.
Oh God. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like I said at the very beginning, I can see what he was doing here. I understand it. It didn't work. It just didn't. It didn't work.
It did not. However, I still think people should see it.
Yeah, it is pretty wild, that's for sure.
You think we're making this up?
It is wild. All right, any final thoughts on this Quaid, this little mini Quaid marathon that we got going on?
I feel bad because we hardly talked about him.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, he was fine in most of these movies. Like he's
about him as a performer. Like, he's good.
I mean, my favorite role of his, I think, is still Inner Space. But I don't know that I've disliked him in anything specifically that I can think of off the top of my head. I know that recently he's been doing a lot of kind of faith-based stuff, it seems.
I think we've talked about like how he did that, like how he did that movie where he plays Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And like wasn't like I think it was right when like that first still from it came out and everybody was making fun of it because it was just
him. It was just Dennis Quaid.
Him, you know, posing like the way that Reagan did in that silly picture.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where he's at now with I can't really comment on like him as a person. I don't know what his politics are.
I don't know what's
going
on with his current career.
I have an idea of where his brother's life is at. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Randy Quaid's his life, but
I don't. I can't say I do.
Man,
I feel like I can't go there.
He went off the deep end, like big time. So
oh man.
Just after this, just look up Randy Quaid's Twitter and you'll see what he's up to.
Randy Quaid's Twitter. I never stopped to consider what he would be posting on his Randy.
It's not anything that you would expect. Let me tell you that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's nothing that you would expect.
I'm going to close Randy Quaid's Twitter now.
Yeah, you should. All right, and with that, I think we can close it out for this month. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can send us your 90s memories to 90s@filmpulse.net or by DMing us on Facebook and Twitter at 90spod. If you get a moment, consider reviewing us on iTunes. That would be fantastic. Until next month, for Ken Bakley, my name's Adam Patterson. This has been Saved by the 90s.
Bye, everyone.